And we're live. Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. This is Podcast Act Ground Zero, your home of the apocalypse for Podcast Act Ground Zero, episode 48. I am Legend. I am your legendary host, Jared the Apocalypse Nerd Wallace, and our legendary sidekick or co-host.
Sidekick? Do I look like Robin to you? Do I look like Tonto? Oh my God.
Well, he said Ed McMahon. He's kind of a sidekick. So
Ed McMahon is a giant. Okay, Ed McMahon is a giant.
Hey-o! So we're our legendary co-host, Adam Bomb Glancy. So we're back, folks. We took a little bit of a hiatus, as you know. We were getting before our last show in July. I didn't realize how long we had gone. Honestly. It was before Gen Con, so we were a little bit busy. Then we had Gen Con. There's a couple of shows, and there's been a lot of stuff on people's plates. And then we start thinking, it's like, oh, okay, things have relatively calmed down a bit. And it's like, oh, shit, we've gone way too long without a show. So here we are.
I had to go through the HP Lovecraft Film Festival is coming up. I've got plenty of work to do on a Kickstarter that's got me buried. And I also had to go to the Necronomicon convention in Providence, Rhode Island, which is kind of a necessary thing if you're a professional Lovecraftian. You need to show up, and I did.
So I guess I'm not a professional anymore since I didn't make it.
Well, you have a nubile young bride, okay? So
and a day job that pays the bills.
That's right. Yeah, you failed to wed a nubile heiress, like I did. That's not true. She's not an heiress. She's pretty flexible, though. I don't know if that's the same thing as nubile, but
time out.
Overshare. We're now oversharing. Moving along.
Shut up, co-host.
Oops. I've ruined the show again.
But so we went a little bit like, hey, but you know what? Like we said, guys, it's labor of love, and we got a little off track, and we do that. But we're back on track. We got the show here, and this is the one we planned on doing next anyway. So we're going to talk about
we'll be on track for a while, right?
Yeah, exactly. We should be. I don't see anything foreseeable yet. But hey, you never know what life will throw us.
Could be an apocalypse.
Yeah, there could be an apocalypse. Well, I got the bed apocalypse tomorrow because we bought a new mattress like 2 years ago, and the thing was a piece of crap. We had to warranty it, like it totally just like fucked up.
I have never had a mattress turn on me. What the hell are you and your nubile young wife up to exactly?
Nothing to do with that, but no, it was really defective because when we got the warranty done, they inspected the guy at the mattress place like, yeah, that's a piece of crap. We've had so many returns on this because it's they don't even make it anymore.
No wonder it was a bargain. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It wasn't that cheap either, but it was just a piece of crap. So we got that coming tomorrow, and they're like, oh, let's do it tomorrow. I'm like, can't do it tomorrow. I got too much going on. But so
the mattress is still hanging over you like the sword of Damocles.
Oh yeah. Well, fucking every day I wake up like my back is killing me. It's just like, so we invested a little more money in a better mattress. So
this is why old men like us are just not geared for the apocalypse. If we're having trouble with our mattress, we're not gonna do so good sleeping in our car, eating dinky-dee dog food. It's not going to be good for us.
Oh, like I've already said, when I was in high school, I was like, oh, hail the apocalypse. I wanted it. Now it's just like, I'll just be an armchair apocalypse warrior. I don't want to,
All right. So what do we got that's new in the world of the apocalypse these days?
Well, before that, like I said, folks, we're going to talk about I Am Legend,
yes.
The Richard Matheson novel. We are also going to talk about the three film adaptations of the movie, and there was a fourth independent one that went straight to video that I only just found out about like yesterday. Neither Scott or I have seen it, so we really can't talk to it. So, but you know what? If we haven't seen it, it probably isn't worth talking about. So we're going to cover that. So some apocalyptic news. What's happened recently is, let's see. Well, Z Nation is back on the air, the Sci-Fi Channel zombie TV show, which I've mentioned before, and I do like it. I think it's good. They don't take themselves too seriously. It's not bad. And, of course, you have classic lines in that TV show because Murphy is one of the main characters in it. He has classic line. He just had a classic line on the second episode. Hey, the apocalypse means never having to say you're sorry. So
I have not seen Z Nation yet. Heck, I haven't seen Fear the Walking Dead. How about you, sir?
I've been watching Fear the Walking Dead, but Z Nation, the first season should be on Netflix, I believe.
Okay. Yes, it is.
So if you have time to squeeze that in, like I said, it's campy, but it's not bad. They do some cool stuff. I've been watching Fear the Walking Dead. We're 4 episodes in. A lot of people don't like it already. It's too slow, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? They said that about The Walking Dead too. But it's before it happens. It's during the breakdown. It's a slow burn. So
it is what you wanted. I mean, they set it where you wanted it to be set, which is not after the fall, but during the crisis.
And seeing why it all just went to shit. Because, the military taking over and doing this bad shit I could see already, and people in denial, people not understanding what's going on. So you're getting all that, which would create the whole collapse. But again, the biggest thing about it, which we've said in all post-apocalyptic zombie things, is in the zombie apocalypse, generally, the zombie apocalypse doesn't exist.
Yeah, as a genre.
It doesn't nope, there's no, oh, what's this? What's wrong with that person? Are they sick? Oh, why are you biting me? Oh, I'm beating you and shot. You're not dying. Oh, what's going on? Yeah, it does. Generally, they don't exist, and you really have to give a suspension of disbelief for that, because you're like, yeah, if it happened, I'm sure some people have done movies like, oh yeah, we know that zombies exist, and this is what we would do. I don't know if a zombie apocalypse would be able to get pulled off in today, because so many people are aware of it and preparing for it that, I think it would still go bad. Don't get me wrong.
Well, one of the things that goes on in David Wong's book, This Book is Full of Spiders, that's the title, This Book is Full of Spiders. One of the things that goes on in it is this idea that he comes up with a problem that's showing up. I don't want to be too specific, some alien invasion, transdimensional incursion problem. It's very Lovecraftian in some ways. And the idea is that because people are so programmed for the zombie apocalypse genre, people start reacting exactly the wrong way. It's just the opposite. Because the genre exists, because everybody's seen Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, everyone starts to fuck up. And that was the best. That's one of the best approaches I've seen to how do we turn a universal trope on its head in order to make the movie or the situation scary again.
No, that's good. That's a good approach, because you have to do that, because it's not scary anymore. Even as far back as Shaun of the Dead, where it's like, don't say that. What? That it's stupid,
Yeah, don't say this. Yeah, at least I sort of liked the part they sort of acknowledged that there was such a thing as the genre, but clearly, we don't want to sound stupid, so we're not going to say it.
Exactly. So that sounds like a pretty cool approach. What was it called again?
Oh, the book by David Wong is called This Book is Full of Spiders. He's the guy who wrote John Dies in the End. He's a regular contributor to Cracked, or an editor at Cracked Online. Since so much time has gone by, I don't think we've had a report from you on Mad Max, the video game.
Okay, yeah, the video games. It's okay. It doesn't really do anything that exciting. If you've played video games for a while, it's pretty standard fare. It's just like, okay, you have something to do, grind to get your stuff. Okay, oh look, we have to upgrade the Opus. I forget what the fuck he calls it. The Opus. The machine's like the something Opus with the guy who's building it. It's like the ultimate car, So oh look, we got to get a frame, and oh look, now we can build weapons. Oh, it's nothing new, nothing that innovative. It's like you got to grind and get food and get water.
Did you get more value out of Fallout's Vault Dweller game?
No. I'll go back to Mad Max. It's just I've been playing a couple of free games came out that I've been playing. So, but the Mad Max, like I said, it's okay. It's cool driving around like this, hearing the fast car and driving, and the fighting's kind of interesting. But and the atmosphere is nice, but it's nothing to write home about. It's you could buy it used. I would wait. If you haven't bought it yet, wait. Get it when it's like a third the price. That's my recommendation.
Wait for the hype to die down. Has your Blu-ray turned up yet? Are you now Fury Roaded?
Oh yes. I got the Fury Road, and unfortunately, it did not have the two alternative versions that Miller said he was gonna put on the Blu-rays.
Oh no! What do you know about that?
Which was the black and white version, and a silent version to where there was only music. I was really curious to see those. If I would have known they were not going to be on there, I just would have got a digital version of it, because otherwise it's kind of a waste of time. I feel like I wasted my money. Well, not really, because the digital versions would have been the same price, But I would have just got the digital because it didn't have those. I was curious to hear just the music version, But it was funny was when we started watching it, 10 minutes into the movie, a neighbor's knocking on our door. It wound up being a mistake because they're like behind us and they're like, "Oh, I hear music and this and that." Dude, it's where our speakers are compared to where your child's bedroom is at 8 o'clock at night. It's like, listen, it's not that late. There's no way they're hearing this. It must be one of your neighbors on the other side blasting music. But because I had it cranked up, I got that Bose system with the subwoofer and stuff. So it gets pretty loud. Don't get me wrong, But I had that cranking. So it was nice. It was good seeing it through again. So I enjoyed it. The Vault, they came out with an update for the Fallout shelter. It sparked my interest for another 5 minutes. Like, oh, look, different things going on. Okay, now I'm bored with it again. So it's not. I barely go on every other day now. Just as like, oh, look, they're dying because they have no water. Let me create some water. And that's, it did, again, it's a free game. So I got my time and value out of it.
Okay.
So. And it should be available on Android now, so you can download that.
I will eventually. Although I admit that the most recent game I picked up was they were offering that game Amnesia. It's sort of a Lovecraftian exploration adventure game. Good and scary. It has a reputation for being good and scary. It is good and creepy, but they were offering it for free on Steam because the new version of the game or new game in the series is coming out, and they're like, "Here, try the original, musty old version from a few years ago." So free game is free game. So I had my first foray into Steam. I'll probably be going back for more stuff now that they've got the first hit is free.
Oh yeah, that's how they get you. But I've been playing free. I've been playing free stuff too on the Xbox One. They give out 2 games a month. One of them is a game called How to Survive. It's basically you're in the Galapagos Islands, and there's a crazy guy. There's zombies and some monsters, and you got to build stuff. It's for a free game. It was fun. I've been playing through it, shooting zombies, building weapons.
Nice.
2 other things again coming out on Xbox One. So guys, if you have an Xbox One, these are things to look forward to. Is are you familiar with the runaway hit app called Plague Inc.?
No.
There is an app. It was big on the iPhone. It was called Plague Inc. Basically, it's a virus plague simulator. That they built that. Plagues break out. You're a virus, and you build how does it transmit? How does it how is its resistance? Pass for boats and planes, spread the world, and you wanted to basically destroy the world as a virus. And then
wow, so you're not defending against the virus. You are the bug.
You are the bug.
You are Captain Trips. Did you name yourself Captain Trips?
Yeah, the first time I played it, I absolutely did. But
of course
I did. So it's been out on the apps for a while now, and they have a lot. They have a lot of other versions. Like they have like a zombie virus and this and that. It got so recognized that the CDC loved it and said that this is a great simulator for how diseases spread. Oh yeah, they've gotten huge recognition for this. Like they're like, listen, you built a perfect thing here. They came out with a version for the Xbox. It's on the Xbox One, so now I can play it on a big screen. So they got Plague Inc. on Xbox One, and in October, I know it's been out for all you PC gamers who think they're superior. The piece Wasteland 2, the console version for PS4 and Xbox One are coming out next month of Wasteland 2. So like 2 weeks before Fallout 4 comes out. So I'm like, should I pick it up or should I wait till it goes on sale? Because I'm going to play it for 2 weeks and then Fallout's going to come out. And
really, you're going to pick up Fallout immediately? Because I don't plan to pick it up for 6 months until all the DLC is out and all the patches, and then I'm disappearing for about 6 months.
I don't know, because unfortunately I missed out on the pre-order for the Pip-Boy edition, which I'm extremely not happy about. But apparently they said that there's going to be some additional release on release day, so I'm going to see if maybe I could snag myself one. So. I got at first I was like, I don't need that. And I'm like, yeah, I need that.
Yeah, the collector gene just rears its ugly head again, doesn't it?
But it's so fucking cool. That's why I'm like, I gotta get that. But yeah, the first day I could have got my hands on one and I didn't, and I regret it.
Yeah.
So Fallout 4 is coming out. So Wasteland 2 is coming out. Plague Inc. is already out. But again, Wasteland 2, is the sequel to the Wasteland game, which originally came out in 1990.
Yeah, I helped kickstart that way back ago.
So yeah, that's coming out. So I want to play it, and you know what? I'll probably wait on that because I'm sure it won't be a huge success. So it'll go down in price. So I'll wait on that one.
Well, let me ask a question here. What else? We got anything orbiting in the apocalyptic world of movies?
There's a whole bunch of stuff I've seen on Quiet Earth. Like I just saw a trailer for SEALs versus Zombies, Navy SEALs versus Zombies.
Okay.
The trailer looked okay.
The ones I was thinking of was, again, what I mentioned before.
The Maze Runner.
Yeah, Maze Runner, which I haven't seen yet. I had no clue that this was set in a post-apocalyptic world until the previews for the Scorch Trials came out, which is a sequel. And then suddenly I'm like, oh wait, this is a post-apocalypse? Oh great, I'm gonna have to watch some young adult novel. I shouldn't be too grumpy about that because that British film, This is the Way We Live Now, which was based on a young adult novel, was actually pretty cool. The American girl who visits England, and then a nuclear bomb goes off in London, and there's some kind of war, but because they're kids, they don't really get to see what's going on.
Yeah,
they did a lot of very cool things in that film. It was surprisingly good. I was very happy where somebody just shoots somebody right in the middle of them being reasonable. Like bad guys are being bad, you get the drop on them. And then they start talking about how reasonable and not violent they're going to be, and our heroine just shoots him mid-sentence. I was just like, golf clap.
Oh yeah,
because no, we saw what he's like when he had the drop on everybody. Yeah, this new revelation of reasonableness is only going to last until he gets the gun away from you. So let's just start off by gut shooting him. This is the Way We Live was pretty good. So what did you see about the Maze Runner? I mean, you've seen Maze Runner, right?
I saw the first one. It's not very, very post-apocalyptic, but it winds up being apocalyptic. Like at the end, like, oh look, the world's the world's destroyed, and this is what's going on. So I have to see the second one because it definitely gets them out into the world. So I have to see what the environment looks like. I just have to do it. It's again young adult novel. It's nothing. It's not rocket science, but.
Technically, aren't the Shannara novels set in post-apocalyptic setting?
I'm sorry, did you say something?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know they're doing the sword and sorcery and elf shit around, collapsed space needles. That's not going to get me to watch it. I realize that it's technically post-apocalyptic, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to swallow that particular pill.
Well, especially since it's being done by MTV, right? If I remember correctly.
Oh, I don't remember exactly.
I don't remember, but I read the books in high school. Yeah, I know at the beginning it hinted that there was like, oh, it's 3 billion years after or whatever, and I'm like, okay, not really to me, not really post-apocalyptic, and also to me, not very good books. So.
No, me too. I'm sort of amazed that the series has lasted this long, and then it's now being made into. I mean, I guess it's all part of that George R. R. Martin. Let's pile on to George, and what's this stupid show, The Bastard Executioner? I've been hearing terrible things about that, trying to catch the Game of Thrones bandwagon and do something swords and sorcery or chivalry.
Oh yeah, everybody's trying to get onto that, but. Yeah, but that's what really I know for movies coming out. I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming out.
There's one other I want to point out. There's something called The Fifth Wave, which has in it people you'd recognize. It's Chloe Grace Moretz from Kick-Ass.
Okay.
Liv Shriver's in it. Ron Livingston, who I think you might remember from Office Space and from, I think he was in Band of Brothers. He was sort of the main protagonist in Office Space. It is a alien invasion apocalypse. It looks a lot like Falling Skies.
Okay.
It's a lot like Falling Skies.
Which I saw like 3/4 of the first season when I thought it was good. I just haven't followed it since.
I watched through maybe 2 seasons of it until the other aliens showed up who were like, yes, we're totally want to fight these other aliens, and we're willing to do it to the last human, which I thought was sort of oh, wow, we're the third world. Terrific. We're going to be the little shit stain in the universe that these 2 alien superpowers play out their Cold War in. That'll be fun. But I haven't picked up on it since then. It got a little repetitive. Didn't feel like they were giving me enough progression of story. So I did not keep up with it after the 2nd season. But this movie, The Fifth Wave, it has elements of that in it. It also has some elements of David Gerrold's War Against the Couture, where before the aliens even step on the planet, they're dropping rocks into the ocean from orbit. They're dropping plagues on us. You know what I mean? They're hitting us with EMP weapons from orbit and fucking us up before they even show up, because they have the high ground. But we'll see. Maybe it'll be good. The preview looked a little young adult to me, but
check it out. But if you ever want to see a good resource for post-apocalyptic movies and stuff, and they talk about other things too. But there's a website called Quiet Earth. QuietEarth.us. They're really good at. That's where I see a lot of my information from. Is on the Quiet Earth site. They also mentioned that there's going to be a television adaptation possibly of The Mist. So we'll see what they can do with that. But
they can, as far as I'm concerned, they can only ruin it because good movie.
Yeah, you all love the good movie. So all right, so that's really all we're going to talk about for that. Let's move on to the subject matter.
Oh, yes.
So, I Am Legend, Richard Matheson, published in 1954 or 51? I think it was
54.
54.
Because it's 10 years later that Last Man comes out. I mean, that's the last one that Matheson had any contact with.
Yeah, he worked on the screenplay on that one. So it is a post-apocalyptic. It is a vampire apocalypse. It's the character, thinks he's the last man on Earth. Robert Neville is the protagonist's name. He is the last human left in a world of vampires because there was a play. I'm trying to. It's been a while since I read the book, but it was basically a plague that was coming out. Was it like
there was a plague, and it was also spread by an ongoing global conflict elsewhere in the world. It wasn't. It wasn't as spelled out as it is later in Omega Man, right?
Yeah.
Where they're just like the Russians and the Chinese just unleashed bacteriological warfare on it, and my money's on the Russians dropping the bugs myself because they'd be drowning in all those Chinese army guys. Got to thin them out with some bug, and whoops, it got out of control because Go figure. They're the Russians. They're it's not nearly as overtly spelled out as it is in Omega Man, but he does talk about it being mosquito-borne.
Okay.
I mean, eventually in the book, he diagnoses the disease not as a virus, but as a bacteria, and which has two different stages to it. It's really cool. And his main character isn't a scientist. Robert Neville is not a scientist like he is in the later adaptations. He's just a blue-collar guy who goes and educates himself. Because he missed some of the information of the apocalypse while it was going on. But later goes back and tries to check records and newspapers and books and articles and try and figure out what happened. It is a mosquito-borne virus, which I love. So it means that you can get it and it doesn't take a vampire. Well, it takes a
tiny vampire.
Yeah, that idea always freaked me out in zombie apocalypse movies. What if it's spread by? If it can be spread by a bite, what if it's spread by a mosquito bite?
Yeah.
That would blow chunks. That would be fucked up. But in this one, that's what it is. So it very quickly, there's no such thing as a front. It gets everywhere. And the book takes place over, I think, 3 years.
I believe so.
As you see him going through various stages of being crazy.
Well, yeah, because he's in isolation, he's by himself, he's got his routines to try to keep himself going, but as you see in the books, which I think they also address in the movies, is that eventually he starts slipping.
Yeah,
and that's what happens. He eventually starts to slip.
They miss the there's a whole bout where he's drunk in the books, where he just starts drinking away the apocalypse. They usually miss that in the movies, but I would think that is one of the 5 stages of post-apocalypse is drinking.
I think it's in all 5 stages, but
it might actually be.
Well, but no, in the Omega Man, Charlton Heston does like his drink. Every time he's coming back, he's always mixing drinks. So
yeah, they sort of imply that he's sort of drinking and asleep at the wheel during the one attack. When they start catapulting his brownstone or his whatever his apartment is. But I had read I Am Legend back in high school, I guess it was, back in that time period in the 80s when we were all starved for more zombie stuff. We'd had Night of the Living Dead and we'd had Dawn of the Dead, and we had nothing else. And we were starved.
Day of the Dead hadn't come out yet.
Yeah, exactly. And so
you had some of the Italian ones.
Yeah, and they were always poop. I never got into Italian zombie films. I'm sure there are people who tell me that Fulci's Zombie is great. It never got me. It never got me interested. But this book did. As a kid, I absolutely loved a number of things about it, not the least of which was I totally loved Richard Matheson sciencing up superstition. That's one of the big themes, is that the vampire thing is, he makes the point that maybe this was around in the past but never really got out of control, never got into a super virulent form. And this is where the legend of vampires comes from. But now because he talks about how there's things about the disease that mimic vampirism.
Yeah.
But it's not actually vampirism. The afraid of mirrors, afraid of crosses, garlic. Yeah, it all has to do with psychosomatic effects in the novel. That people are afraid of things because they think they're supposed to. There's one point where he builds a moat around the house to run water through, and the vampire who's never heard the legend that vampires can't cross water, he walks right across it. Really a good start off sort of, and it's a really good meditation on total fucking isolation.
Oh yeah.
It's a really good meditation on absolute, your failure of identity in the face of total isolation. Who are you if there's nobody around you to reflect on who you are or reflect your personality to you? the thing with the dog in the book is just gut-wrenching, where he has a moment to have some companionship and it just leads to more loss. The dog comes back in a couple of versions. Dog comes back in the Vincent Price version, and it comes back in the Will Smith version.
Yep.
Usually tragically. But Robert Neville had to kill his wife because he wouldn't surrender her to the government crematoriums and body disposal, and now spends his days just smelly and hairy and stalking through the landscape. And do you remember the part about how he's stronger than the vampires?
Yes.
The plague victims are kind of weak. It takes multiple ones to overpower him. That's really interesting because can we do the final spoiler for the end of the story?
Yeah. Well, again, folks, we're talking about a book that came out in the 50s, and we're going to discuss this kind of stuff. So let me give the standard spoiler alert. So if you don't want to be spoiled, don't listen. But we know you're here to listen because we're going to talk about stuff. So.
The ending of it, the whole title is the ending, which is he finds out that he's not alone in the world.
He's a scary monster.
Yeah, that at some point the people who have the vampirism disease have found a way to partially treat the disease so that they won't go crazy, so they won't become beasts, but they're still damaged by sunlight. If they stay out in it too long, they still have other problems. But he's still going through the post-apocalyptic wasteland and killing everybody he finds. So because he's stronger and can go out in the daylight when they can't and can see in bright light, he's like the scary monster that comes out at night.
He's the boogeyman.
Yeah. And he becomes their boogeyman. He's the thing that people are, go to bed, or the Neville. The Neville will get you, like he's the Krampus or the boogeyman or something like that. Or
and also, if I remember correctly, is that there's victims of the plague, but there are living victims and dead victims. So he can't tell the difference between a dead plague victim and a live plague victim. They're like, oh no, we're not all those are the dead ones. Those are the poor Slavs. We even kill them. But you're killing living people, so you're a monster. And the Vincent Price movie, The Last Man on Earth, follows the book pretty closely. It's not it hits all the main themes, and that was I don't know, it was a problem. But that's one of the things that I thought was kind of strange about the book. Is like I know the point was to be ironic in the story that, oh, look, he's the monster, he's a legend, blah, blah, blah. I know that's the whole principle of it, but the whole point of it is, they're like, oh, they're coming to get you. They found you. They're going to execute you, this and that. But it's like, okay, well, if you guys knew where he was.
When you say they, you mean the half-infected people, the ones who are still got their brains intact, figure out where he is.
Yeah, the organized ones who have rebuilt the whole society in the night, because that's how they can exist, and they have their laws and they have their government, and they've tracked him down and they're going to execute him because he's killing people. Well, the thing is, I know ignorance of the law is no excuse, but he doesn't know. As far as he knows, and if you guys know that he's doing this, why didn't they do something to try to contact him?
As opposed to spy on him, because that's all they do is send a spy. Yeah,
they spy on him, and they're like, oh, there he is, let's get him. It's like, well, if you guys knew he's been doing this all on killing the living people, not along with the dead, how do they know that he doesn't know that? Or how do you not know that, well, if he's not a monster, doesn't he have immunity? Why would they want to kill him? Why would they want to try? That's what's stupid to me about the story. It's like, why didn't they
communicate? Why didn't they just leave a note?
Yeah, because he's going to see a note that's written. He knows, well, these monsters aren't going to leave me a note and try to trick me, because nobody's ever left me a note before. So they could have.
I can see a whole part. I can see a whole part of the novel where he's trying to figure out: is it a trap? Is it a trap? Is it a trap?
Yeah.
He's been living on fight or flight for 3 years, and somebody tries to reach out to him. Maybe the first person who reaches out to him gets whacked, because he's so gone. But they kind of skip over that, and the other society immediately starts treating him as the freak that needs to be eliminated. without passing through any other stage of.
Oh yeah, it's not like they tried to contact him and try to work things out with him and communicate and like, okay, well, it's not working out. He's a crazy fuck. Let's get him. No, none of that happened. Why didn't they reach out? Because apparently he's immune. Well, why is he immune? Well, let's work with it. Let's get him in here, try to find out what's about him so we can cure everybody.
Well, that
doesn't make any fucking sense.
There's even a thing where the note that the girl Ruth, the spy, Ruth leaves him a note saying, you got to get out of here. I'm from a society, and she explains who this group is, and that he's got to get gone because they're going to come for him. And she says in the note something like, I don't know if I could protect you. We're rebuilding society. We're eliminating the monsters. And she says something like, that might include you and others like you.
Oh, so there's other people out
Which
there.
implies that maybe she's aware of others, and this, they've made a decision that these others will never be reintegrated into society. You know what I mean? That they're too crazy from being alone, or that somehow there's a past experience, with other survivors, and he's just one of who knows how many who've been eliminated.
And like I said, they didn't touch on it. Maybe they tried that and it didn't work. So they made a unilateral decision. Okay, any of these lone survivors, even though they survived, they're immune. We can't do anything with them. But to me, that doesn't make sense because again, even if it's a matter of capturing them and putting them in cages and at least experimenting with them to get the blood, because they have to be able to make a serum. They have to be able to find a cure from these people who have immunity. Why would they? Oh, we're just going to kill them, and we're just going to be a society that can never go out in the daylight and live in the dark. To me, that seems kind of stupid. I'm sorry.
Yeah, not to mention because it's daylight. How often?
More so than dark, depending on where you live. They don't have to move to Alaska like in 40 days a night. Yeah,
except that when summer comes around, it's 4 hours of dark and 20 hours of light. You're screwed no matter what, unless you're going to be a migrant society that changes hemispheres with the seasons. What, you live on a boat? It surprises me that they didn't. It surprises me too that they didn't find a way to try and harvest him or something, or there wouldn't. I mean, if they'd come after him with we're going to dissect you and find out why you work, I would totally buy that without a second's thought. They're going to dissect him because they want to find a cure, and they're not concerned about whether he survives their search for the cure. But just to show up and eliminate him, it's almost as if they'd given up on a cure. Like, this is the new world, and we're all going to be like this, and we're not going to try and change it.
For them to get at that point only after 3 years seems a little, I don't know. It doesn't seem as plausible to me, but again,
still
because also with the daylight, like for example, because up in Seattle, I've been there. Have I been there during the summer? Yeah, I've been there during the summer.
Yeah,
it's still fucking light out at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, sundown's 9:30 in the height of summer.
9:30, and then when is sun up? It's like
it's still like 6. It's like 6 to 5:30. And it's the other way around. You get deep into winter. Sun's gone by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and 4:30 it's completely black, and the sun doesn't come up until like almost 8. Yeah.
So during the summertime, it's like, well, we have short work weeks, in that society during the summer when it's so bright. So there's a really good old episode of Tales from the Dark Side, which I'll try and look up, which is all about these vampires that live in a gulag in Siberia. They're up there in a Soviet style gulag in the 80s, and the basic deal is there's this reciprocal relationship between the prisoners and the vampires, where the prisoners voluntarily, take blood transfusions or to feed the vampires during the summer months when the vampires can't, because it's almost daylight the whole time. So the vampires can't, go out and hunt.
So the people in the camp feed them their own blood to keep them around. And then at winter, when it's dark 16 hours a day, and there's all these wolves up there that come into the gulag looking to eat the prisoners, the vampires end up killing the wolves and keeping them away from the camp. And
don't kill the other people because, hey, you're our food source for part of the year.
Yeah. They have this. They act like, you know, it stops being a parasite and start being a symbiote because they're stuck up there. They can't escape either. They'd never be able to get out of the, you know, they wouldn't be able to get to a place to be safe out of the sun, or, you know, with the creepy Stalinist KGB security state everywhere, their ability to escape is really small. So they've settled down to a since Stalin, and new generations of prisoners keep getting sent there, and they just, you know, again, have this relationship where it's like, you feed us and we'll protect you. But something like, you know, again, that kind of a relationship doesn't show up in, you know, isn't explored in I Am Legend. Mm-hmm. Now the 1964 movie Last Man on Earth, you want to lead on that?
Yeah. One thing I'm going to say about, now I only watched it this week. First time I've ever watched it, because when I probably first saw Omega Man in the 80s. And then I maybe heard about Last Man on Earth years later. Vincent Price, Last Man on Earth, didn't know it was related until years and years later. And then I was like, oh, so it's more based off the book, which is vampires. I wasn't as interested to track it down because I was more interested in the Omega Man because, you know, Charlton Heston. And
Charlton Heston.
One thing about the movie, which I totally noted in my head because it happened in the Day of the Triffids either. What is with these 60s, you know, science fiction / horror films to where they always have to end in a church?
Yeah. Instead of waiting in his cell to be executed, they hound him into a church.
Yeah.
And stab him to death.
Oh, they spear him with one of those spears that they were killing the monsters with. But again, it ends in a church. Day of the Triffids ends in a church. And I'm sure if we really looked at it, we'd find a lot of other those 60s black and white horror that ends in a church.
Wow. There's the Quatermass experiment where the astronaut comes back from outer space, turns into a Shoggoth, and eventually they electrocute it to death in a cathedral. So there's your next church.
See?
Oh my God. War of the Worlds. Everyone's hiding in the church in George Powell's War of the Worlds as the Martian war machines are getting closer and closer, and then the Martian machines just crash into the street because they finally came down with the flu.
And
so
it kind of ends in a church. And they came out of a church.
Yes, they did. There's from a church.
There's a fucking pattern here, man.
I think you may be right. I think you might actually be onto this something. Like
not all of them, but I guarantee you there's a lot.
There's always the part where they had to like kind of kowtow to public opinion and not, you know, go too far down the road of it's all science can be explained by science. There's a lot of, you know, and then God's littlest creation, the bacteria beat the Martians, you know. Yep. So there may be some of that going on there.
McCarthyism, Cold War era. Hey, science and Soviets are bad. Be a good church-going Christian American. Yay!
That's when we put in God we trust on the money. It's when we put under God in the pledge. So it wouldn't surprise me if there's a little pandering or kowtowing to public opinion, you know.
Damn you, McCarthy! You've ruined everything. But
most things.
So yeah, so black and white film. Vincent Price follows the book, you know, pretty, you know, not word for word, but it follows all the main points, you know, pretty good. And
it tells a lot of the story in flashbacks, like the book does.
Flashbacks, yep. And we were talking offline before the show started, and Scott brought up a very good point about the beginning of the movie, that the movie is basically him waking up going through his grind, going through his routine, doing what he does, but they add a voiceover, because maybe they felt that people wouldn't understand what's going on like they did with Blade Runner. But Scotty made a good point that it would have been the movie would have felt a little different if the beginning there was no voiceover dialogue and you just saw him going through his routine, because the routine pretty much shows you everything and you could figure out what's going on from there.
Yeah. The handmade calendars he's got piled up,
written on the wall like he's in fucking prison,
Yeah, him going and checking all the garlic for freshness. There's a voiceover saying, "I've got to check the garlic to keep the vampires out." But if you just watch this guy get up, check his garlic, check his supplies, go to the lathe and make a couple of table legs into steaks, stick in a bag, get in the car without a word, drive around, kick indoors, and stab people to death with no explanation. And you're like, what the fuck am I seeing, right? But then some of it will be explained in flashbacks, where you'd go back and go to the parts where it's all going down, and his neighbor is who becomes his nemesis, Ben something or other. In the book, he's Jewish, and there's this whole thing where the cross doesn't work.
Aren't Jews the enemy of everybody? So.
Well, yes, you have a tendency to poison the wells and put the blood of baptized children in the matzah, but apart from that, you're lovely people.
Oh, thank you.
But that sequence, I accidentally watched it one time with the sound off, and I started just watching Vincent Price, without any speaking dialogue, just act his way through the scene. It's actually really effective. I really wish that had been a scene with no dialogue where you could just see him. This introduction to the apocalypse by showing and not telling.
But it was that 50s, 60s era, and they just had to do that,
Yeah. And it's a weird film because it's shot in Italy with mostly an Italian cast, but it was owned by Hammer. It was actually a Hammer licensed product that Matheson got to write on a little bit, but he had his name taken off the script. It's sort of a Alan Smithy project because he was
or Conrad Bird.
Conrad Bird. Let me see what his fake name was. It's something like Logan.
Yeah, Logan, because he didn't like a lot of the rewrites that they did, so he's like, "Listen, I want my name removed from the project."
Yeah. Logan Swanson. There you go.
Oh, see another Bird thing, like Conrad Bird for Harlan Ellison.
Okay, there you go, Conrad Bird. I forgot that was his "fuck you" to Plume.
Yeah.
It's you can tell that it's shot in Italy at some points, but at least it showed us things that I always like seeing in an apocalypse, like the burial pit.
Yeah, like they're still smoldering, and they've been smoldering for 3 years because he keeps on putting things in there and burning them.
Yeah, I like the horrible. He's still going back to the same burial pit that's on the edge of the city 3 years later. I think they deal with things like the car breaking down. Does his car break down, or you have to get a new car at some point in Last Man?
Yeah, like his car gets trashed because he stayed out too late.
So, which again they redo in Omega Man, but there's a lot of cool things in Last Man on Earth, but it's slow moving. It's not quite as exciting, although I did sort of like the part where the other people show up with their fucking machine guns and jeeps and things, and they're all paramilitarized. It's like,
that's how. Well, they weren't quite like that in the book, weren't they? Basically, they just like show up in black cars and they have sunglasses and trench coats like they're the freaking G-men from that one episode of the X-Files.
They do look a little Man in Blacky, but I do remember this thing about how they had like big 50 caliber machine guns, because if they make a big enough hole in an infected vampire, a dead vampire, it causes the bacteria that keeps them sort of cemented together, eats them apart. It changes from I think in the book it described it as an anaerobic. There's something about like this bacteria that it's an anaerobic symbiote where it's if the bacteria isn't exposed to oxygen, it helps keep the dead vampire moving. But if it's exposed to oxygen, it turns into an aerobic, that is a oxygen-using parasite, and will destroy the host. So if you make a big enough hole in them that's so big that they can't heal over and close the hole before oxygen gets in, they'll like with a big shotgun. And at some point, Neville's like cutting them open, like up a wrist. You know, there's a part where he's using metal to cut them open because he doesn't just have to drive a stake through them and keep the injury open with the stake until the disease turns on the host. But he finds other ways to get rid of them quick, turn them to dust, turn them to sort of ash. And apparently big giant fucking guns does the same thing.
You know what? I think it does that to real people too. So
yeah, it slows them down, you know, with that giant fist-sized hole in the middle of their chest. But they were tooled up. I think I remember them being tooled up, but they're very paramilitary in the movie, and they are wearing black pants and black turtlenecks. So they've got this, you know, again, this army of goths. I don't know,
yeah,
beatnik goths or something. I don't know, but they were tooled up, and I was very.
They came in there snapping their fingers, where they had the machine guns, you know.
Well, I was very pleased that they actually had PPSH 41s.
Yes.
They had those Stalin's banjos, which you never see. I'm kind of wondering, why did that end up in the prop department?
Because it was filmed. Because you said you answered your questions. It was filmed in Italy, so it was probably easier.
Where did the Italians get them from? It's not like the Italians were Soviet clients in the 1960s.
I guess it was easier to get them than, you know. I don't know.
Well, yeah, maybe they're just hemorrhaging practically for free out of Yugoslavia next door, and they just picked up some on the cheap.
Yeah,
but
it was in Europe, so I figured that had a lot to do with it, you know. So
yeah. It's a cool machine gun. I was very glad to see it in a movie. It doesn't turn up very often.
So that was, you know, again, I Am Legend, black and white, Vincent Price, follows the book fairly closely. You know, again, classic film. You know,
although he does do the transfusion. He does do the transfusion with the girl Ruth, which comes back in the one that we first fell in love with,
the Omega Man, with Charlton Heston. So we'll move on to Omega Man, because I love the Omega Man. Because I was thinking about doing this show, and do you know, here, let me see if I could hold on please.
All right.
My current general ringtone is, let's see if you could hear this. That is my current general ringtone.
That's excellent, sir.
There's no phone ringing, damn it! Which right out of the gate in the film, he's like driving, he's tooling around the city in his convertible Mustang. He looks like he has safari gear on. Basically, he's got like, you know, like a leather belt, you know, that you can see like maybe somebody would have had like in World War I. He's got like a it's more like a safari jacket on, you know. He's riding around the car shooting at things
with the aviator sunglasses,
and you know, goes in to see a movie, and he comes out and he starts hearing all the phones ring, you know, because again, he's starting to lose his marbles a little bit because he's been alone for so long.
Well, there's that scene where he's in the theater saying all the lines.
Oh yeah, because he's seen the movie so many times.
Yeah. Woodstock held over for a third straight year.
Yeah. Now, I watched some of as I have the Blu-ray, which came out in like 2007 or something like that. And by the way, the transfer was pretty damn good for the Blu-ray. But basically, the extra content was from like the 2001 release of the DVD, which had a couple of like interviews and stuff like that. Now,
is there a period documentary? There's like a period documentary that was made at the time.
Yeah, there was now I guess there was the writer of the film and the co-writer, which was his wife. I think he must have passed away because he wasn't in that little documentary. It was like 8 minutes long, but she was talking about why they didn't go with vampires. They're like we just couldn't do vampires. We didn't want to do vampires. We didn't think it was going to work. So they went with a viral epidemic, the germ warfare, because number one, she was a PhD in like chemical engineering and stuff like that. So she was like a doctor of like chemistry and chemical warfare and shit like that. And then her husband had the doctorates in like psychology. So they're like, we wanted to try to make it something plausible at the time, because she even talked about it, to this day it's still possible that we could kill ourselves with germ warfare. So this was in 2001. So that's why they went with that route. They kept some of the same elements, like, yeah, they're sensitive to daylight. And they talked a lot about it was done through the chemical warfare, sensitive to light. And they talked about how part of the symptoms were like hallucinations, dementia. Because you got to think that Matthias, I love Matthias, by the way. His name is just cool. Matthias was the reporter, reporting on the fall of society.
Well, better than that, it's not just that it's Anthony Zerbe. Zerbe. It's not just that he's a reporter. He's like Walter Cronkite. It's like the apocalypse happens and Walter Cronkite becomes Charles Manson.
Yeah.
Now it's they fucking call it The Family.
Yep.
So, and it's LA. So I'm smelling some Chucky on this one.
Oh yeah, well it came out in 1971. So it's very interesting because again, so everybody, people get out, in as they call them, tertiary cases. They are albinos, sensitive to light, and you got to think, people are desperate, people are hopeless, but why are they clinging together, following what Matthias says? Besides him having a very good leadership qualities and very charismatic, but he really twists these people into, technology is bad, we're going to go back to medieval times, the users of the wheel, he's a man of the past, they're bad, they don't have the scar, they don't have the marks and stuff like that. And I'm like, why the fuck are these people? That was what I found a little kind of, why are they following this guy, believing this? Because I think they explain a little more that the people are just, they've lost, because the germ warfare is basically fried their mind, so.
Yeah.
And you can see that they're very docile, follow everything he says. They're just kind of brainwashed because they're easy to control, Yeah,
well, apparently not everyone is as docile, because first of all, Matthias isn't quite so docile. He's still got quite the personality. And then there's the other brother who, climbs up the side of the building, whose name I am suddenly forgetting. He's the one who's clearly like some former Black Panther, some former revolutionary, who's talking about the man. And Matthias has to keep reminding him that, we're all albinos now, so we're pretty much beyond that whole race shit. But he does agree with him that it's the man, that that it's the old world, it's the powers that be that killed the world. In some ways, they see Matthias and his people see Neville like the women saw Immortan Joe.
Yeah.
In Ferry Road, they see him as he's the symbol of the past. He's the people who killed the world. He is a representative of that old world. So they see themselves as the heroes of this story, that they're going to fix everything. But their plan to fix everything is burn libraries, wreck technology, destroy infrastructure. Like, it's this magical thinking that, gee, if we just kill Matthias, everything's going to be coming up roses.
Oh, yeah. And I love how, the one guy, he's like, well, it's like, he lives high in the light, while we are down here. It's like, let me go to the old National Guard Armory and we'll get a cannon and we'll blow him out of there. No, my brother, we cannot do that. That is the way of the wheel and the past, and we are,
Yeah, we'll return to the bad ways and we'll destroy what's left of the world.
Because burning what's left of the world is not gonna.
Apparently, that's not as big a deal. The one thing that's missing from Los Angeles in that movie, and they do some great jobs of filming in LA downtown to make it look deserted.
They filmed on Sundays and holidays.
Yeah, and they do a great job of having, with a limited budget, of getting big empty spaces. But the one thing that LA should have had a ton of was fires. It should have looked like London in The Survivors, where just shit's on fire all the time. With nobody to put it out, everything would be on fire all the time.
Oh yeah. Oh, and also on the DVD, the Blu-ray, which was from the DVD, there was a small documentary where Charlton Heston heard that there was this well-known at the time anthropologist, Ashley Montague.
Mm-hmm.
He was a British American anthropologist who popularized the study of topics such as race and gender and their relation to politics and development. He was in Los Angeles at the time of the filming, and Charlton Heston wrote one of his books, and wanted to talk to him, invited him onto the set, and it was interesting. It's probably on YouTube to see his dialogue with Ashley talking about Neville and the psychology of Neville, isolation, and they're like, well, because Heston brought the question of, well, why didn't he leave? Why is he staying where he's at? Ashley was talking about it, was like, well, even though he's alone, but he'd rather stay with the enemy, because those are, at least there's interaction and other people there. Whereas if he would have gone out to the woods by himself, he's totally by himself.
He could have blown his brains out in 6 months alone.
Yeah.
With nothing to do, as opposed to having somebody to fight against so that he can at least maintain some sanity. That's interesting.
Oh yeah, and they were talking about that, which it was like a 7-minute little clip of him talking to him, and it's very interesting. Listen to Heston talk to the guy, and they're talking about, because again, he's apparently social anthropologist, talking about all that interaction, which is pretty amazing, because Neville had his routines. He did this and he did this and he did this and he said alarm, blah 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 blah. And when he started not doing his routines, that's when he started to slip. When the woman came into the picture, his routines changed. When he started to get careless. Well, he started getting careless beforehand. He stayed too long in the movie and he almost didn't make it back. Then he, met her. Oh, I forgot to fill the gas in the generator. So he started to slip, and that's where his downfall came from. He broke his routines.
Yeah. And I really, one of the things I love about the beginning of the film is he looks like he's so together at the beginning of the film, with his fucking safari jacket and his equipment belt and his machine gun and his aviator sunglasses. And then there's that part where the phones start ringing and he's just shrieking like a crazy person.
Yeah.
And you realize how not together he is. That's that he could fly apart any second. And I like that when he runs into Dutch and what was Rosalind Cash's character's name? Rosalind Cash, Lisa.
Lisa.
Runs into Dutch and Lisa. He's like, well, why didn't you guys contact me? And he's like, because you're shooting everything. There's that one thing where he's driving down the street and he sees a movement in a window. And he just jams on the brake and just machine guns the window. Yeah. No wonder they didn't come talk to him.
Yeah, because they're like, well, we have to avoid the family during the day, at night, and then avoid you shooting at anything that moves during the day. Yeah. But then again, they could have left a note. They know he leaves his place. They could have left a note. They could have left a note on his door or something.
But unlike the vampires in Last Man on Earth and I Am Legend, he knows the family could make a note.
Yeah.
He knows the family could
set a trap.
So could set a trap like that.
And they tried. When towards the end, when he's driving around the streets, they're putting up obstacles, getting in his way.
That's something else I'm going to throw out about this movie. There's Chuck Heston with a machine gun,
which is always a good thing.
Which is a good starting line for any scenario. So Chuck Heston has a machine gun, and I don't really think he does not create 1980s, 1990s, 2000s movie levels of bodies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The number of casualties he inflicts on the bad guys are not like something out of a John Woo film. He kills some guys, all right. But, you know, it's a dodgy thing at night with no lights, having a fight with guys who are shooting arrows at you, you know. He kills some guys, absolutely. There's plenty of confrontations where the bad guys turn out very badly, but they don't make it super. They don't make him superhuman. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because he was a scientist. He was in the military, but he wasn't a warrior. You know.
Yeah. So he's got an advantage because he's got these tools, but that can go pear-shaped really fast, as is demonstrated in the movie when they tip over the wine cellar on him. You know. Oh
yeah. Because again, he's getting careless. Now, when he's up top and he has the big infrared light to look through the scope, was that a bar that he has?
That was that was a BAR. The weapons that turn up in this movie is mostly there's the BAR with the big infrared scope on it, which is actually a light shining an infrared spotlight down that then the scope can pick up, but human eye cannot. And it's just a huge, bulky, nasty thing. But the other one,
remember this is like 1970, 71. So
yeah, the other thing he always has is that 9mm Smith & Wesson's M76 machine gun with the air-cooled perforated barrel on it. Yeah. And in his arsenal, there's like, it's funny how I don't remember, even though it's the 70s, there aren't the M16s hanging around the movie. I remember a lot of World War II vintage stuff or even earlier vintage stuff, hanging out. Like maybe
they were filming this in 1970, 71. When did the M16 when did that first come out? 65?
It's all over the 60s. It's all over Tet. It's all over it's all over the Tet Offensive. Hold on. I am going to answer this. I am answering this phone call.
Mute yourself.
I will mute myself. Hold on just a second where I hit the mute button. Where is that? Up here? Volume control. Am I muted? Okay.
No, you're not.
Okay. I'm not muted? All right. Wait a minute. Here it is.
Okay, now he's muted, folks. All right, Scott had to take a phone call, unfortunately, but we will continue talking here. Yeah, so a lot of, like he said, I'll lead off there. There's a lot of vintage weapons there. M16 was, all over the 60s, but it's still probably relatively new. So they probably had a little bit harder time getting that weapon. But he said he had the arsenal, but he always had those few weapons there. Now, I don't know where the hell we were going to go with this conversation. See, it's good when you have two people working off each other. You kind of it flows organically what we're doing. So, so it came out in 1971. One of the things that I did like about the whole setting was that they didn't overdo I mean, they put debris in the road. But they had a lot of bodies around and a lot of dust on everything. Like when he went to get his the Mustang, because at first he had a Ford, I think it was it might have been like a Gran Torino or something. He gets the Mustang. He's in the dealership. There's bodies around. He's like lifting the hood up, and there's dust and cobwebs on it. So they did pay attention to that kind of detail.
I love that he had to put a new battery in it. There's this whole thing. We have to prime the motor and prime the carburetor rather than just get in and turn the engine and drive off. Yeah,
he carried around a jerry can full of gas with him because his car might break. He might need to get a new car. But what I was saying is with the I'll get back to that in a second. Was with the weapons that the M16 was relatively new when that was being filmed.
It was pretty standard. By the time 71 rolls around, it is the weapon of the U.S. Army. It would have been all over the place. But
maybe they didn't have civilian versions. Maybe they probably couldn't get them.
It's not just that. It's just that certain weapons take different kinds of not flash suppressors, but blank adapters to make. And some of the weapons that he had, like they never show I don't think they actually show the BAR fire. I think they just show the impact on the ground. But those 9mm machine guns have such a light bolt on them. It's easier to get a blank adapter for it. It's easier to get a cartridge that will move the action. I think a lot of it has to do with, what's the easiest thing for the prop department to use and make look realistic. And because so many of the weapons in his arsenal, like there are some MP40, it's like the old Schmeiser German machine gun. There's some of those in his arsenal. I think it was just, we're just going to go down to the prop department, MGM, grab the stuff that they used in the Dirty Dozen, stick it in the arsenal, and that's the end of it. That's as far as they necessarily thought about it.
And related to his weapons, because again, like we were talking about, they were always out in the street in front of his house. Why was he not shooting at them? Because he had those blinding lights on him. And later on in the movie, he's on the roof, and those are Browning 30 calibers.
Those are no 50s.
No, those are 50s. Okay.
When he's talking to the kid up on the roof about where Matthias's people are, those are giant honking. I think those are giant honking M2H heavy barrels.
Those are 50. I didn't know there was. I thought they were.
I'm gonna go look immediately on
Weaponopedia, whatever it is called.
Gunopedia. Yes, exactly. The firearms database, because there's certainly a 50 over at the kids camp with Dutch and Lisa. Because there's this little kid behind a giant 50. But I think you might be right. I think those. I think those weapons on the roof were actually 30 calibers Brownings. But regardless, it's very World War II.
He's on the roof, pretty high up, and if he could reach them with the BAR, he could definitely reach them with the Brownings on the roof and those giant spotlights. Why, when they were out in front of his house, why is he just going up to the roof and just mowing him down with the 30 caliber? Because let me tell you, he would be thinning their numbers out real quick, and they wouldn't get so close all the time if they knew that they were going to be made Swiss cheese.
I get, there's all kinds of ways you can write your way out of that hole. Like, why is this thing happening that I don't understand? Why he's just not gunning them down? And my first thought would be, if I'm Matthias, right? If I'm Matthias and I want to be, the first thing I don't like is, technology, right? And I don't want to have to deal with having too much of it. The first things that get burned down or set on fire are gun stores, police stations, army barracks, so that Neville's ability to resupply is cut off. So maybe he's not just gunning them down because he's worried that he'll run out of ammo. Yeah,
that's true. But again, he looks like he had a couple of belts on those things. So let me tell you, you know what? They must have like 30 people out there. He probably could have taken a big number, but then again, I think part of it comes back to what Heston and Ashley were talking about, is he kind of needed them as much as he hated them, and he needed them psychologically to work off and interact with.
Yeah, I like that answer a lot better. That like he needs this war to go on. If he and even when the kid tells him where they are. And his first, has this moment where he's going to jump up and go kill Matthias's people. And then he goes, no, fuck it. Part of that is, if he does go and exterminate them, then does that mean his story is over? What else has he got,
But no, he found the new people. So he just wanted to get out of there. He just wanted to go with Lisa, with the group, and just get the fuck out of there, Also, that's kind of funny because Reggie is the kid, and he's talking to him. It's like you got to either kill him or cure him. Or before he says that, he's funny. He's like, you know what, Mister, you're hostile. Which I love that line, Mister, you're hostile.
One of my favorite moments is just that thing where Rosalind Cash finds the condoms and just goes.
No, it was the birth control. Yeah,
it was birth control pills. She's like, well, I guess we're not using this.
Well, they had a section in the pharmacy which said Planned Parenthood supplies.
Yeah, Like, maybe not for a couple years, you know.
But the thing about the movie was, the one thing, like I said, it's, again, we're not writing movies, so, but, you know, it's not flawless, but it's a good movie. It's a good ride. One of the things I did not like about it was the stereotypical 70s soundtrack.
Oh, yeah, it's a bit porny.
Yeah, it is. It's just like, oh my God, I wish there was no fucking incidental music. You know?
I will not disagree. This is me not disagreeing.
Yeah, that was a problem because it definitely had a 70s soundtrack.
Yeah. Well, you know, the three Chuck Heston films I always think of for The Future Sucks is Omega Man,
Soylent
Green, and Planet of the Apes. And Planet of the Apes always had the sort of the most kick-ass soundtrack because it was so alien. It was so weird and nasty and unpleasant. So it really worked. I don't remember. Do you remember anything about
Soylent Green soundtrack?
Yeah.
I'd have to watch it. It's been a while. I don't remember, but I'm sure it'll all come flooding back.
But the fact that we don't remember it means it can't have been too fucking terrible.
Or we just don't remember, or it was so fucking terrible we just blocked it out.
Well, true.
I got that 70s porn music in my head from Omega Man. I just watched it again last night, and I'm like, oh my God, this music is so terrible, you know. But that's the problem with a lot of these post-apocalyptic movies that we love from the 70s. A lot of times the music ain't so good. No. So again, Mega Man's another solid film. Let's talk about the 2007 version, I Am Legend with Will Smith, before we hit the top of the hour. Now, well, the biggest problem that both Scott and I have with this film is the CGI rubber monsters that they use.
Well, if they'd been rubber, they wouldn't have been a problem. The problem is that they're not rubber. They're made of fake-o elastic CGI face.
That's what I mean. When I meant rubber, like raw, the big long mummy jaws. It's like, come on.
It's gotta be a direct impact of that shitty Mummy movie. Well, the Mummy movie's not shitty, but that effect showed up everywhere after. Yeah.
We read a lot of places that there was, originally they were going to use practical effects for it, and we wish they would have, because then it would have made it more tolerable, because there's nothing worse than terrible CGI, because even good CGI isn't that good. You know it's fake, but if you don't spend all the money and time to make the CGI good, it really looks shitty. You know, like you got to spend top dollar on it to make it look to where it's, especially, when you have inanimate things or using it in backgrounds or using it as enhancements, CGI is fine. But when you're doing living creatures, it looks terrible. It just looks terrible. I'm sorry. So that was my major problem with it. Now, the I Am Legend Will Smith movie, which came out in 2007, by the way, I didn't realize that was 8 fucking years ago, is they took both from the story and the Omega Man. So they definitely followed more vampiric creatures, and they took a lot of this stuff from the Omega, kind of like how the Omega Man was. And one of the things they were talking about, because I watched some of the little documentary pieces, they apparently did a lot of research before they did this movie about viral pathogens and all that stuff to see how viruses would work. So they actually tried to get their science, somewhat right. They tried to make it plausible by making it at least based and grounded in reality. So that was interesting how much work they did on that. And one of the things that were funny is they were talking with a lot of CDC people. They were talking about things like Ebola, like viruses are living and dead. Like they're not really alive. But
yeah, it's that whole weird thing where they only have half a strain. They have like a string of RNA rather than a full string of DNA.
Yeah, and the thing is, a lot of them, they're just proteins and chemicals. That's why you could freeze one for 500 years and it'll be fresh as daisies when you defrost it. Because they're not really alive, but they're not really dead. So it's kind of an interesting thing, which I didn't really realize. So they, on the I Am Legend Blu-ray, there's a lot of interesting information about how they made the film and the research that they did on it. So again, it takes from both, because this time it was brought about by the so-called cure, they tried to come up with a cure for cancer, and it worked for a while, but then everybody started turning into, vampiric, feral, vampire zombie creatures,
Yeah. They do downplay the vampire aspect pretty hard.
Yeah.
They're monstrous and they're killers, and there's even vampire or monster dogs, but they don't really play up the vampire aspects like the garlic, the mirrors, the crosses.
Oh, no, not at all. But just that, they're light sensitive.
Photosensitive, yeah.
They're photosensitive, they're more feral. And I think one of the things that they did, and I love they talk about his routines, which help keep him sane. He sets alarms, reminders. Oh, time to get up, time to do this, time to go home, time to turn.
Or just to notice that time's going by, to have a sense of time.
Yeah.
Before he just loses track of it, and it, And by the way, I just finally got to IMFDB. It was actually a 30 caliber at the kids camp, and it's two giant frickin' M250s.
Oh, they were mod deuces. Okay.
Yeah, they are just looking at the ammo boxes, and the bullets are the size of bananas. So yeah. Anyways, back to Will Smith.
I think they do, and also I love his fortification with the shutters and everything that he does to protect, that location. He does his routines. He doesn't park in front of his house. And what was that? Was that like, was it bleach that he was spraying everywhere, like dripping everywhere to get them off his scent?
Yes, I think it was.
So
that's how I interpret it that it was bleach, which is bad stuff. It would definitely eliminate a scent trail, sort of, and it's also going to damage your nose if you sniff it. So it would discourage somebody from following the bleach trail.
But then on the other hand, my thought is like, well, if they notice that, look, there's bad bleach smell here, but nowhere else, why is it just here?
Yeah.
But then again, they weren't thinkers too much.
Well, they finally copped to it they are when they build the trap.
Well, I think that was the leader who did that, because he seemed to be the smarter one, because he saw the same trap that he used to capture somebody. He did the same thing to him. So there was some intelligence there. But overall, I don't think they were as intelligent as, you or I, just, because.
Or the family, or as intelligent as Matthias and the family.
So, but I would have been like, oh, look, there's bad smells here, but nowhere else. Why is that there? Let's watch this place a little bit more. So I like how they set up the environment at the beginning of the film. They definitely seemed like this was probably around the time when Robert Wiseman's The World Without Us came out, that book, I think. And I think probably Life After People probably first came out. So there's definitely, they realize that, listen, if there's no population in an area for a long time, it's not going to be like you think. So they might have had some kind of consultation here, because they had the overgrowth, the decay, the flooding of the tunnels. So I think they did a good job of setting up the environment of not having man there for 3 years.
I think you're right. Like the collapse of the bridge, when they show the collapsed bridge, although that's destroyed by an airstrike in the film. The thing I keep remembering seeing on IMDb was that whole Brooklyn Bridge getting blown up sequence with all the people. That was a $5 million shoot, because they shot it on the actual Brooklyn Bridge, that crowd scene. So that kind of blew my mind. The other thing that blew my mind about I Am Legend is it made its money back.
Yeah.
Or at least it made about 3 times the production cost. I don't know if that covers advertising, but I am amazed that it made that much money.
Well, it's Will Smith. He was a very big box office draw at that time.
Yeah. I mean, he may not quite have that kind of pull, but he sure as shit had it back then. So it wasn't the film wasn't a financial failure, but they definitely chickened out on the ending. And apparently chickened out because they showed the downer ending to audiences and then changed it. That whole part where they go to...
There's a theatrical, and then there's the alternative ending. Now, the theatrical ending is he gets okay. Spoiler alert, people. The theatrical ending is he gets them out of there, and he just he gives them the serum, sacrifices himself so they could get out of there, and wipes them out with the hand grenade. That was a theatrical version.
Yeah.
And then there was the feel good one where, you know, he says, "Oh, wait a minute, the bad guy is making a butterfly with blood, and oh my God, it's her. He has feelings. There really is human under there. Let me give them back, and we could all go away all nice and happy." I didn't like that one.
Okay, there was that ending, but there what there. So okay, so they never got around to filming the ending where the girl Ruth and her daughter are actually semi-infected.
I don't recall that one. No.
Okay. Well, I mean, there was some talk that they were that they were gonna. Oh, it's really gonna follow the original story. And they're going to go with the idea that, you know, again, he's the freak. And that community that, you know, with its happy wall and its guards and its post office and its green fields, that little happy community was going to be filled with, you know, half-infected semi-monsters who have adapted to, you know, to living in this new world. They were going to go with something closer to the original ending.
Ah, okay.
I agree that the "gee, can't we all get along" ending was kind of bullshit. But that moment where seeing them walk out of post-apocalyptic New York into, you know, that little walled community is about as jarring as Deckard and Rachel getting on the elevator, then a Blade Runner, the doors close, and then suddenly they're out of this horrible acid rain-filled, dark all the time Los Angeles, and then they're in the mountains, and there's sunshine, and there's green trees, and you know what I mean? That weird ending of Blade Runner from the theatrical, and it's just like, wait, it's so jarring that it goes from this, you know, blighted urban landscape to this pastoral setting at the end. Yeah, I really didn't like that. It didn't work for me at all.
Well, yeah, that part was kind of apt, but I did like it better that it was, okay, you get out of here, I'm done. So I'm gonna let you. Is that he made that sacrifice and still did die. So I did prefer that. I did prefer that than the "can everybody get along" ending. You know.
Yeah. Well, there's also the idea that everything he's been doing has been a waste.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they really push that idea hard enough, but I really would have liked if they'd push the idea that it's like, how many people have you horribly experimented on over the last few, you know, there's all the pictures on the wall.
Well, that's the get along, the feel good ending where, they show the wall with like, there's got to be 100 pictures on the wall of the experiments, you know?
Yeah. I really wish they'd push the idea that all these captures, all these people who were tortured to death in his medical experiments trying to find a cure, that not only did he not find a cure, but maybe that it was a waste of time from the beginning. Like, you know, that he wasn't actually making any progress. So it was this sort of, his existence, his whole mission was bullshit. And that might be one of the reasons why he sacrifices himself, because at least this time he's actually saving somebody.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to this play acting, pretending, hoping he's going to save somebody, which he's failing at utterly.
Yeah, because he was doing all that because, again, that was part of his routine. He had to have a purpose. He had to do something.
Yeah. And that's the big thing about Omega Man and I Am Legend. And that is the most important thing, I think. It's not the vampires, not the apocalypse, but it's the loneliness thing. It's the whole, you know, somebody suggested that it's up there with Robinson Crusoe, and, you know, sort of like, how are you going to deal with being alone? It reminds me very much, speaking of The Quiet Earth, it reminds me of the New Zealand film The Quiet Earth, except with the only antagonists in that story, for the most part, is being alone. The antagonist is your own brain turning to guacamole because you're all by yourself in a completely empty world.
Yeah.
That's another apocalypse that I think we can all highly recommend.
The
Quiet Earth.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the whole that's what these main thing is with the films is the isolation.
Yeah.
You know, the being by yourself. And that's, again, Heston talks with Ashley about that. You know, is that the isolation of being alone, how he needs people. And so it's an interesting dichotomy, you know, all that. But it's like I said, the Smith film, again, because it's Will Smith, some of it was interesting, so it was if they didn't do the CGI monsters, it could have been a lot better.
If it had been practical effects, in fact, when he goes in the tunnel looking for the dog, and you see the monsters at first, it's clearly people in suits, and they scared the piss out of me.
Yeah.
But the moment they show up and they like roar at him from the doorway, or the hand reaches out and burns or whatever, and it's obviously CGI, I stopped being scared because I knew the cartoon could not get me.
Oh, the cartoons could get you. Don't you worry about that, and they will. But
there's a few call-outs to the older films. I mean, I like the part where the kid puts in the DVD or the TV set, and Will Smith just automatically talks along with it.
Yeah.
Every line, like he's been doing that for so long, he just can't help himself but to talk along because he hears the dialogue and he just starts filling in the dialogue.
Oh yeah, because there's no need to go to a movie theater like in the '70s film because there wasn't VHS or DVDs. But, I mean, you could have had your own little film reel thing, but
that was a shout out to Heston sitting in the theater doing all the dialogue for the Woodstock documentary, and so there's a number of cool shout outs, and the dog is a shout out to the dog that Vincent Price finds. So there's certain shout outs to the older previous editions that were sort of interesting, but the monsters when they come bounding across the city, like marsupials or whatever, on all fours,
lemmings,
yeah. And they're clearly CGI. It sucks all the fun out of it.
Yeah. Even though his nice little setup with all the bombs around the house is pretty cool. Like that's his last man standing. That's his last ditch effort. Is like, okay, they're storming the castle. I gotta take as many out. I gotta take as many with me as I can. Instead of
an Alamo gun, he had an Alamo series of claymores, apparently.
Oh yeah. Because it's like, what? It's like, I may not live for this, but I'm going to make them pay attitude, And that's fine. And I like that. And it would have been a cool shout out is they would have had him have to the Heston films, he would have been listening to music on 8-track tapes. Because that's, in the car, and the thing is 8-track tapes, all over the place, All right, for you kids who are young viewers, they had this thing called 8-track tapes before MP3s, before CDs, and what was it before vinyl?
Cassettes.
Well, cassettes were around the time, but they weren't as popular as cassettes were the 70s, but 8-tracks were the thing. 8-tracks were horrible for kids. I'd rather have a cassette tape than an 8-track tape any day.
Oh, I'd rather have a broken ankle than an 8-track.
Oh yeah. Wow. Because you put it in, you had say you had 12 songs on it. It was broken up into 4 sections, 3, 3, 3, and 3. Oh, I want to listen to the 5th song. Well, you hit track number 2, and you got to listen to a whole song before you
get
to the
next.
Wait. And then you wait. Or at least with the record, you can put it on the 8-tracks. Horrible. But
that in and of itself is enough to cause the apocalypse. I think back to Escape from New York, where the big thing they're fighting over is a cassette.
Yeah,
is a magnetic cassette tape in the future. I'm like, oh, not so much in the future. It's always the future through a backwards lens. Anyways,
so I am again, also the one thing I didn't buy as much was when they set the trap for him and he was hanging upside down he had to be up there for what, 5-6 hours.
I gotta tell you, 5 or 6 hours upside down is gonna do horrible shit to your brain.
Yes.
Your head's gonna swell up. Your cranial pressure is gonna go through the roof. I think if you're hung up that long, you might not wake up.
I mean, he was out for several hours, right? I'm not wrong on that one.
They sort of implied. I mean, I got a passage of time in that scene. Yeah, he hit his head, and hitting his head as he's jerked off his feet because it pulled his foot out from under him. That'll render him unconscious for. I mean, it's clear that they sort of implied he had a concussion because he was out for a while. But then add to that concussion plus the over pressure. I'm amazed that you could wake up from a situation like that. You know what I mean?
Or if he did wake up, that he'd be able to do anything because he was being hung by one leg. Oh my God! All that. Oh, I mean, he did stab himself in the leg, so but even if he didn't stab himself in the leg, he might not be able to walk on that leg because all the joints and the muscles would have been stretched out. He would have been in a lot of fucking pain.
Yeah, yeah. They didn't quite sell that. I mean, because that trap will rip all your ligaments and all your soft tissue to pieces. It's not just like sproing and then they let you down later. It's sproing and here's your crutches.
Yeah.
You know?
Here's your wheelchair, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. But
what again?
So it generally looked good. New York looked good, right?
Yeah. I think so.
New York looked good and post-apocalyptic. You know.
Again, overall, I mean, it's you know, it's not a bad movie. It could have been a whole lot better. You know, again, if they just would have, if they would have had practical effects for the monsters, I think it would have raised it up a lot to me. So,
and again, I just wish somebody would go back to the original thing and have a very downer ending, where you know this is it for humanity. I mean, but you don't get endings like that since Chuck Heston movies, where Soylent Green is people, or you know. They blew it all up, you maniacs. You know, humanity usually gets off pretty easy in big budget films.
Oh yeah, that's why I love The Mist so much, because oh my God, they're doing a real not happy ending, and you know what? People were outraged, but I was loving it. You know.
Yeah, well, what would you want to see? A horror movie or an adventure movie? You know,
or like with The Descent. You know, American audiences needed a different ending because it's too depressing. I love the original ending. It's like, oh fuck, you know, it's fucked. It's totally fucked.
Yeah.
But anyway,
the best part about it is it's fucked inside and out because not only is she doomed in a cave, she's doomed in her head in a cave. So
yeah, you got a double whammy there, a little twin axe attack. But so anyway, so I Am Legend is pretty good. So real brief, because we have nothing to talk about related to this, is apparently there was a movie that came out right, what was it called? The Omega?
I Am Omega.
I Am Omega.
It was listed as a mockbuster. Apparently there's a type of film called a mockbuster where you make a film just as another movie's coming out and you give it a title that's incredibly close. My favorite being Transmorphers, which is a bunch of films trying to make you think that you're renting Transformers, but you're not. I didn't realize that this was a whole thing, but yes, apparently there's a whole industry of trying to get another shit movie out just under the wire for a blockbuster to fool people at, I don't know, the Red Box rental or the video store.
So I only learned about this yesterday. I haven't seen it. Scott hasn't seen it. And, you know, there's probably a reason why.
Yeah, I think I looked at the IMDb listing and I looked at the Wikipedia page, and there was nothing that was beckoning me on. There was absolutely nothing there seducing me. I can't imagine that it would be worth losing those minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Get them back.
Yeah, I've wasted my my time on a lot of things, and that's something I don't want to waste my time on. So
I think I Am Legend, the book, still holds up. I think you'll still be happy if you pick up that Matheson novel, even though it is dated technologically and socially. I think you'll be impressed with it nonetheless.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a good read. So if you get a chance to do that, so folks, that is I Am Legend. That was the book. That's the films. Again, very definitely post-apocalyptic. By our definitions, all the movies worth seeing. Particularly. So out of all the films, Scott, would you say your favorite's the Omega Man, like myself?
Well, it's the most fun, and it's the one that I saw on the CBS late night movie, which was the 11:30 at night, late night broadcasting when all we had was commercial television back in the 70s. I remember seeing that film on the late night movie and just being so excited about it as a kid. I think there's a lot of things I like about Last Man on Earth better and related back to Matheson's novel, but Omega Man was a lot of fun. Man, just a lot of fun.
Yeah, considering a fun movie, it's But the Last Man on Earth suffers too much from that 50s, 60s horror movie feel, which I don't particularly care for as much as I do other things. But that's just me. So okay, cool. So that was folks. Again, if you haven't seen them, see all three of them for real. See, The Last Man on Earth is on YouTube. That's where I watched it. There's a pretty good quality upload on there. And I'm sure you can find everything else on YouTube, I'm sure. So if you haven't seen them, I recommend.
Certainly Omega Man's on Netflix last time I checked. So that's there. Yeah.
So see all three, and read the book as well. It's a short read. It's not a very. It's a short story. So
160 pages, in and out, done.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's worth your read, folks. So that's it for this week. We're gonna get back on track as best we can, because I know 2 weeks would be Monday the 5th. Are you coming? You're coming back from the festival on the 5th. So
I'm coming back from the festival on the 5th. But if you want to bump it to Tuesday, the 6th, I can do that early in the evening. That's fine. We can do it same bad time, same bad channel.
All right, we'll probably do that because that will work because Wednesday is going to be a Chinese fire drill for me because we're getting on a plane on Thursday to go up to up north. So
okay.
And then that'll work out perfectly because I'll be away that following week, and then I'll be back the week after, so we could get back on track. So, folks, we don't know what we're doing yet because we haven't discussed it, but me and Scott will talk offline to discuss what we're going to do next. We're going to kick around maybe some of the ideas we were talking about previously of maybe doing something like the machine apocalypse, because we've never done the machine apocalypse. But I'm kind of hard pressed.
Does that mean we have to cover Maximum Overdrive?
We could. Maximum Overdrive.
There's a couple of good machine. There's the book. There's the story that shitty Maximum Overdrive was based on, which is I think called Trucks. And then there's what is that? There's a short story about the machines taking over. That I remember reading in like freshman English in high school. I'll find that. There are a few machine apocalypses out there we can find.
Yeah, Terminator movies. We could even talk about what was the one 70s music 70s movie Project the Colossus or something.
Colossus, the Forbin Project.
Forbin Project. That's a machine apocalypse right there.
Well, it is less of a machine apocalypse as it is a. It's a bit like it's a little bit more like the origins of the machine dystopia. It's like the computer is about to become your friend, citizen.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
We're going to blow the world up because the machines are taking over. So
we will either be obeyed or we will have no one to obey us.
Yeah, so it would loosely fit in because sometimes some of the things we talk about are a little more dystopian than apocalypse necessarily. They kind of cross over sometimes. So I think we could definitely draw up some stuff for that. So we're gonna pencil in the machine apocalypse for now, folks. But we'll again, me and Scott will talk a little more length, and we'll see if we can come up with something better. So so look for us in 2 weeks and a day. So we're looking, probably Tuesday the 6th for our next live show. Yes. And as normal, you could always, see these archived on the YouTube channel, and then typically within the week I get them the audio ripped and put it onto iTunes and also on the blog. And so if you want to download it to your MP3 player and listen to it on your drive to work and hear our exciting voices and have us share all our knowledge with you about the apocalypse.
Our melodious voices.
Yes, they will probably lull you to sleep and make you crash your car. So,
well, clearly we need to say more annoying things to keep them enraged on the drive to work, so they'll have the adrenaline to stay awake and possibly run over cyclists and pedestrians on the way.
So remember, folks, you suck. So,
we forgot to mention the Omega Man.
The what?
The Omega Man. The Simpsons did an Omega Man spoof on one of the one of the Halloween shows where it's the Omega Man, which again, that's kind of a natural. Yes, everybody in town is a mutant, and We don't want to hurt you. We just want to eat all your skin off. We're just skin-eating mutants or something like that. There's.
Oh, I have to look it up now. I totally forgot about that. So.
All right, yeah. Stick the link to the Omega Man. Maybe it's on YouTube someplace. Stick it in the comment section.
Yeah, I'll say the comments. I'll also, if it's there, I'll favorite it under the favorite section of the YouTube channel. So, folks, that's it for us this week. Thank you as always for being here. You know, sorry for the little bit of absence, but you know what? Sometimes you need a little break. So, see, but now, you know, what is it? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. So,
yeah, abscess. An abscess makes the heart grow more fungible, I think, is what it is.
It could be. So, that's it, folks. This is Jared the Apocalypse Nerd Wallace and Adam Bomb Glancy saying thank you and good night, and we will see you in the wastelands.